Once again, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs have dominated another NFL draft. This time, 13 Bulldogs heard their name called in the 2025 NFL draft. We're going to talk about all of that. We've got plenty of notes from NFL coaches and general managers talking about the Georgia program and the Bulldogs that they selected. There are a lot of them, so let's jump right into it. Now, we will talk about the first round picks, the three guys on defense, Jaylen Walker, Michael Williams, Malachi Starks. But I want to start talking about Dan Jackson. He was the walk-on that earned everything he got at Georgia. One of the more underrated players really in program history, was not invited to the NFL Combine, and he was still selected, of course, by Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. Here's what Executive Vice President and General Manager Brad Holmes of the Detroit Lions had to say about Dan Jackson and really the Georgia program in general. He said, quote, "I've been to a lot of Georgia practices, and Dan has been around the program a lot for a long time. It's unlike anything that I've seen as far as intensity goes at a college practice. The intensity, the physicality, the details, the tempo, the whole thing. The energy, when you go through that regime and practice like that, you know they are ready. There's a reason why 55 total draft picks from Georgia have come through over the last 5 years. 75 Georgia Bulldogs have been drafted under Kirby Smart. There's a reason for it, right? They know that it is a machine that they are building in Athens. They know that if you can practice and play for a guy like Kirby Smart and those coaches, more often than not, that player is ready to go on and play in the NFL. It is a mini NFL team. I mean, those are just the facts. They win big and they produce elite talent who go on and win Super Bowls, right? And the Detroit Lions, they saw what the Eagles are doing. The Eagles are trying to gather as many Bulldogs as possible, and it's a big reason why they won the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know if the Eagles win the Super Bowl without Jaylen Carter, without Nolan Smith, without Jordan Davis, so on and so on, right? They know that Kirby Smart has those guys ready to play, and the Detroit Lions are saying, okay, we want to do that too. They got Tate Radledge, I believe in the second round. They drafted Dom Lovett, and they drafted Dan Jackson, who really epitomizes what that Detroit Lion program or organization is all about. It's toughness, it's work ethic, it's the love for the game of football. We saw that from Dan Jackson. That guy plays with relentless fire and passion and energy, something that Kirby Smart wants to instill in all of his players. Dan Jackson brings it to him. And they said, we have no problem picking this guy because he practiced and played at Georgia. So we know he can play for us. So I was so happy for Dan and just wanted to start that off. But here's what John Harbaugh had to say about Malachi Starks, the guy they drafted late in the first round. He said, quote, he's a very versatile player, which is true. The guy can play all over the secondary, safety, nickel, so on and so on. He covers people man to man. He comes up to tackle people. He plays nickel zone, which can be a little tricky. He's got range. He showed ball skills. He has the mentality and football character that we look for. He can't wait to hit the grass. And again, if you start at Georgia, it's because you love football, you love practice, and you earned the right to be a starter. And Malachi Starks started day one as a freshman, very first game of his college career back in 2022, helped lead them to a national championship as a freshman, made a lot of big plays, big time interceptions, big time tackles. I mean, that guy was very, very good from the start. He was a 5-star prospect for a reason. And you could kind of tell early on, okay, this is going to be that next Georgia safety to be picked high and probably in the first round. And the Ravens said, that's a ball hawk. That's a guy who, again, excelled at a place like Georgia, against quality competition, week in and week out, made a lot of plays year after year after year. He won over Kirby Smart and that staff. We can't wait to draft him late in the first round. So Malachi Starks, a phenomenal fit with the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, Jaylen Walker went to the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons did not drop the ball here. You could not pick him if you're the Falcons. He slipped to 15, just an incredible, versatile player. He was the best linebacker in college football last season, won the Buckets Award, fell right to the Falcons. Here's what Raheem Morris had to say about Jaylen Walker. He said his makeup is unique as it relates to all the things that he can do and the places where he can rush from. There's not a whole lot he can't do. If you meet the kid in person, you fall in love with him. And this is a guy that was a leader in high school. He got to Georgia, an extremely mature kid, a football kid. He had a football background. His dad was a coach. Just grew up in a great family. And so this guy always had a good head on his shoulders and was a natural leader and showed that every year at Georgia. So everyone who met him through the draft process fell in love with him. I still can't believe he fell to 15 because not only what he brings on the field, but what he brings off of it. This guy will be a leader in that Atlanta Falcons locker room. But from an on-field standpoint, he can play in the middle of the field. He can play middle linebacker if you need him to, and he can play on the edge. But here's what the Falcons defensive coordinator had to say about Jaylen Walker and where they want to use him. He said, quote, "I want Jaylen to have the opportunity to master playing on the edge because I think there's something there that is really, really special." And yeah, he was an outstanding pass rusher at Georgia from the very beginning. I mean, he was making big sacks against TCU in that national championship game. Had 6.5 sacks, I think, over his last 2 seasons, not combined, but each season. Just gets after the quarterback. He can chase down the ball carrier. He can go sideline to sideline and gets the run. But if you tell him, okay, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, 4th and long, whatever it is, go get the quarterback. This is the guy who can do it. He's still sacking Quinn Ewers. I mean, the dude got drafted by the Falcons this weekend. He's still sacking. He just did it again, right? That guy is fantastic, and he beats quality tackles too. He's not going up against scrubs week in and week out in the SEC. He beat really good offensive tackles with strength, with speed. He can bend, but he's naturally strong, and he's aggressive. He's violent. He's explosive, and he can do a lot of different things at the linebacker position. But they want him to start out on the edge. But again, they're looking at him saying, what can this guy not do? He does a little bit of everything. The Falcons obviously needed a big-time pass rush. They needed guys who can get to the quarterback, and they got 2 of them. And the first guy they picked was Jaylen Walker out of Georgia. They made the right decision. It was the perfect pick, and they absolutely nailed it. And they've got a coaching staff that has a plan for him. They saw what he did at Georgia. They saw what he did against Texas. They know what he brings to the table, and they're going to use all of that. I expect Jaylen Walker to play a lot for the Falcons and make a big, big impact for them in the fall. Of course, Mykel Williams was drafted in the 1st round as well. He's the first Bulldog taken to the San Francisco 49ers. Here's what John Lynch had to say about Mykel Williams. He said, quote, "We felt his maturity. We felt his presence. He is very comfortable in his own skin." And again, a lot of people might say this is a reach, but this goes back to him playing at Georgia as well. I mean, they do the skull sessions in the offseason, getting to know their teammates, getting to know the program, and developing a love for each other and for that G on the helmet. And Mykel Williams is young. I think he might be still 20 years old. Maybe he's 21. He's still a young kid with all the tools to be great. But from a mental standpoint, he gets it. He is mature, and he grew in that aspect at Georgia. And Kirby Smart puts a lot of emphasis on, maturing and evolving as a person, not only as a player. Now, you still have guys who make dumb decisions, especially on the roads. We don't have to dig into that too deep, but Mykel Williams was not one of those guys. And the goal is for these guys to grow as players and as people. And Mykel Williams definitely grew in both aspects during his time at Georgia. And these players, or these coaches and GMs, they see that. They see this guy was mature enough to get through Georgia and go through adversity. Everyone goes through adversity. A lot of them now are transferring out, but this is a guy who stayed the path, stayed the course, got better and better, and was a dominant player and a game changer when he was healthy. They saw that. They saw the maturity, and they picked him for a lot of different reasons. But that's what John Lynch had to say about Mykel Williams. Arian Smith was another guy who was drafted. Here's what one of the Jets offensive coaches had to say about Arian Smith. He said, quote, "He has elite speed and adds an explosive element. When you have a piece like that on offense, it allows you to do more, whether you're taking the top off a defense or getting him on sweeps. He brings elite speed." That's the biggest reason why he got drafted. Everyone knows about his drops. Here's what Aaron Glenn, the New York Jets' new head coach, had to say about his drops. He said, "Well, he's very self-aware. He knows that he has to get better with the drops. I've lived through this with Jameson Williams. Everyone talked about his drops. We worked tirelessly in practice, and I see Arian Smith doing the same thing." And again, this is a very mature kid who got a lot of heat year after year after year because of his inconsistent hands. He's a guy who could have hit the portal, found another home, fresh place where people don't really know that he has trouble catching the football, but Georgia fans that was the first thing they think of. Still, when they think of Arian Smith, they think of a big catch against Ohio State that changed the game, but they also think about the drops. And he stayed the course, stayed at Georgia, wanted to get better, and had his best season last year. Still had way too many drops, but he had his most productive season of his career last year. The Jets saw the speed, they saw the potential, and they drafted him. And a big reason why is, again, because of the speed, but his maturity and his ability to go through Georgia practice and play to that standard, play for a winning program. And they took a chance on him. So just a few quotes from NFL GMs, coaches talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, Kirby Smart, and the players they drafted. You can read more about this over on Dawg Post. Make sure you're doing that. Sign up to our free newsletter. It's free. We got a lot of free stories on the website. Really appreciate it. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you over on Dawg Post.